Are we live? Yes, looks like it. But I'm not seeing you there, so, like usually, I'm going to wait and do a fine operation. Very needed. One, right over here. Yes. And yes. And yes, now we can start. Thank you for stopping by. Please be very welcome into this live. We are going to talk about going for deep change. Going for deep change. How do we define deep change? This is the first question you should consider. You should have in mind in order to address this issue. How do we define deep change? What is deep change? Well, there are many ways of expressing, of seeing deep change happening, but the main issue here is it's really a change that goes beyond the surface of things. It's a change that consider really the fundamentals, the pillars, the structures, the overlying principles that codify, that create our reality, whatever that reality may be. It is a personal reality, it is a collective reality. What type of reality is that are asking us or awaiting deep change to happen? And we are living right these days times of, I really believe, deep change, because we are being challenged to have renewed responses to life. Not only the COVID-19 crisis, quarantine, social isolation type of change, because we can argue that it's relatively time spent, so to speak, so it is in some way or the other set into some limited existence, but that is the appearance of things. Because if we think that in this quarantine, in this social isolation, to take the COVID-19 example, that are some changes going on that can affect, that can touch onto the pillars of our own ways of living our own life, not only right now, but in the longer term, then we are invited to consider, oh, okay, how am I going to deal with this? What is the thing that is being asked of me? What are the dimensions to change or not change? What is happening here? Then that's the thing. So it's completely fundamental that we take a grasp onto change, onto deep change. This is the thing that we are going to talk here, deep change. And deep change, mostly and foremost, consider the deeper dimensions of change, even beyond some terms, some words that we use to define change. We should expand our vocabulary. We should consider how our vocabulary is creating or replicating our own thought processes, our own internal devices, in order to get or not our own hands onto the steering wheel of our lives. Because if we think about COVID-19 situation, and if we frame COVID-19 situation in terms of deep change, we can start to ask some questions like, is this type of conditions set in motion just for the short span of things, or they are setting the stage for bigger changes to come? And if so, what type of changes? What type of changes can arise when I got my rights circumvented or limited in this way and that way and that way, putting all the pieces together, what is the things that I can expect to feel in change for the longer term? When they tell me to do A, B, C, or D, what is my way of seeing that in terms of my own, for example, fundamental rights, in terms of my own freedom, in terms of my own thought processes, ability, in terms of my health, in terms of my community sense, in terms of my solidarity, in terms of my civic participation, in terms of my contribution to society in professional, business, development terms, in terms of my parenthood, in terms of my relationships with others, in terms of my involvement with nature, whatever the space of nature that may be, into cities, into countryside, whatever, doesn't matter. What is the challenge? What is the call that the changes happening are made into me? And how can I deal with those in the ways that make sense according to my own paradigm, according to my own worldview, and according to my current practical operational necessities of life, of course, in terms of my own status, in terms of my own way of living my life right now, and prospectively, the way I may live in the future. How do I want to complement my kids or other kids, other parents' kids, my friends' kids? How do I want to complement people I just met? How do I want to be in a public space? How do I want to wear a mask, or I want to be without mask? I want to wear other type of equipment. How do I want to exert my rights in civic terms, citizenship? What type of voting rights do I want to use? In what type of society and political system? Deep change is thinking about the fundamentals, is thinking about the structures of life, is thinking no matter what area, and is thinking about how can I put myself in a context for the very best in me to arise and take the front line onto my participation in the world. Well, it all depends on what's your character, what's your essence, what is your inclinations towards life. I'm more of the thinking type in this type of issues, thinking about taking COVID-19 into the picture. I think I try to see the broader spectrum. I try to put all the pieces possible in broader terms, of course, in place at the table, and then I try to relate those dimensions. For instance, when I hear about Mr. Bill Gates or other ideas from World Health Organization, or public ideas like government participation, healthcare providers' advice, I try to put them in a way that over time I can sense a pattern of intents, motives, and results for our own awareness, not only my Júlio personal well-being, but the well-being of more people having a place onto this world. And more people is like almost 8 billion people. Because we live in an interconnected planetarian society, even more so clearly these days. We are seeing it happen right this moment. Talking about planetary consciousness and awareness, 3 months ago can sounded like very strange and even megalomaniac idea. Now it's not. It's confirmed. Even the most conventional people can attest for the type of situation that we are living in, that planetary intervening between us, it's a reality. Yes, we are living in such times. So, how do I want to participate? Well, depends on our own inclinations. For instance, I heard some ideas around Mr. Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation putting their participation in very harsh terms regarding the public common interest. And then I made some investigations, and then I went for seeing the or re-seeing the Inside Bill's Head documentary on Netflix about Bill Gates and about the stated interests and life purpose, including of Mr. Bill Gates. And then I went make some background checks around those declarations and that frame in the documentary. And then I went seeing that very treatment, asking a question to myself: how did that treatment was reflected onto the financial reports of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? Just to give an example about testing the ways in onto assessing deeper changes coming onto the reality that affects us all. That's my take here. What are the vested interests of Mr. Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, according to the evidence produced, so to speak. And then I see the financial reports, the last 2 financial reports. I've downloaded the last 5 financial reports available onto Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation site. And I've seen that of the vaccination is the first one priority in terms of financial support given by the foundation to other external agents supported by them. And in the documentary, that is not the first priority mentioned around Mr. Bill Gates' life purpose. It's the sanitation priority that is stressed and reinforced in that very same documentary. And so I believe I got some sort of discrepancy in that type of information arising. And just facts, just dealing with facts. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. I'm not talking about other political movements' interpretations. I just interpreted that the way Mr. Gates was pictured onto Inside Bill's Head documentary, it's somewhat or fundamentally different, in my perspective, from the financial priorities stated as, in my criteria, amounts of financial support given to agents on the impact space into social entrepreneurship. And so I made my own conclusion that there are pieces missing in the puzzle of the information shared in broader terms. That coupling those with some other informations not supported, not refuted, not made clear and transparent onto the public space by the conventional media opens, in turn, opens the space for the conspiracy theories, with or without quotes, because I don't know, have their way onto reshaping vast amounts of people into considering that their reality may the reality picture is not okay, is not correct, is not accurate. It doesn't convey a truthful expression. So, just making an example, if we want to understand changes coming, we need to look at reality in the very best way possible. And of course, it all depends on the change. Because if we want to make a deep change in structural terms on the person that we are, we need to understand the dimensions, the fundamental dimensions of the human being, which are the physical dimension, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual one. And we need to address those with intent and with ability to understand where are the triggers, where are the buttons, where are the causes that make some effects happen. What is happening with me? I'm going towards a big change right in front of me because I will change my job, or I will change what type of things in me I need to consider that are a risk or that are a strength. Can I make some sort of SWOT arising, taking this example about career changes? Please take your question. If you have some question, please put it on the comments. I will answer it right away with all pleasure. Yes, for sure, because I can relate many types of changes that I deal with in my life and in my client's life. All sorts of changes. Yes, like physical changes for sure, like losing weight or like going into athletic proficiency, like in the emotional dimension, facing fears, overcoming fears, making yourself into a person that has courage to go face added risk onto your life, to go to the uncertain. And then in the dimensional or the mental, intellectual dimension, how can we streamline our skill acquisition? For instance, our skill set, our toolbox, in order to better grasp our own reality, in order to change that reality better, to contribute better, to participate in a new realm of life, like going to politics or going into entrepreneurship or going into new role in life like parenthood or marrying, no matter what. And then in spiritual terms, how can we, if we feel the calling into reinforce our yoga, which means reuniting with God, our own connection to God or universe or goddess, whatever concept or word you prefer to use, try to define that undefinable, which is God, like they say in Tao Te Ching. The Tao because Tao is another word for God, the Tao that can be spoken, it's not a true Tao. So if we are talking about it, it's not it. But how do we deal with these changes that we are feeling? What is going to an ashram that we are thinking about? Is going to deeper connection into our own space in physical terms. We are in quarantine or social isolation, so that can be really a major for many of us to have that type of transformation happening in the real space that we are in, because like some said, the true challenge when we can't change our externals is really to change ourselves, to change our internals, to change the way we deal with life, to change the way we answer before what is, before people who don't go doing the things we prefer them to do, or to be in the way that we prefer them to be. And then we get carried away in some discussions or conversations. Then difficulties arise because we are in COVID-19 quarantine at the same place, and then we seem to don't talk enough to put our differences in order, and so on and so on. What are those deep changes? The thing is, first and foremost, we must understand cause and effect relations. What are the causes, the underlying causes, the deep causes that make some results happen? Like Einstein said, I've mentioned it in the past. We can't change a reality without, or changing the reality without changing our own behavior is madness. Repeating a behavior over and over and over and over again, and expect that same behavior to produce different results, it's a sort of madness. Unless, and there is always an exception, unless that we know that we are on the right path and that we are building a dam, so to speak, and we are putting more and more water onto it. We are filling that dam, we are filling it with more added power, with more added energy, in order for that power, that energy, after release, generate the type of nurturing, the type of fuel that we need to go get our own purpose. So, instead of bringing you some sort of major theory with stages and stuff like that around deep change, I would really invite you to first put your own questions or comments right over here in order for I give you some hints, some insights, some remarks, whatever. And if not, considering this, first and foremost, look at the fundamentals of your reality. Try to go beneath the surface and check the real issues going on. What are the causes for the external effects? What is causing the thing that is happening? Second, please don't jump into conclusions right away. Have your time to make your own mind. If you need to make your own mind, of course, because that's very important. Don't swallow the first thing that comes into your space. Take the time to assess the value of it, to honor your own discernment, intelligence, ways of understanding what's happening. Don't put your trust onto the hands of other people that may or may not know what's happening and may or may not take your very best interest in mind. And of course, I'm thinking about conventional politics, media, all sorts of agents that may or may not tell the very best version of the truth that they have access to, B, the angle, the perspective of the truth that you need to consider for your particular case or situation. That's the thing. So, no demonizing of others, no putting them on pedestals either. No, those extremes don't work. The only thing that works is using our full awareness of perception that considers not only the intellectual realm, but the reality, the physical manifestations realm, consider the emotional realm, consider the instinct realm, the gut instinct feeling, and then consider your intuition, which is different from gut instinct. Yes, the difference. Intuition is more transpersonal, so to speak, and instinct is more deep, visceral type of reaction. The instinct tends to manifest mostly onto our lower sections of the body, and the intuition tends to manifest more in the transpersonal realms, high abstractions, and inspiring simultaneously in light type of experiences. You know the difference. I'm sure you know, because vocabulary sometimes don't make the difference between them, but in terms of experience they have differences. So please use all your assets to understand what's going on. And then, of course, and I'm saying it many times, there are two other exits that are completely fundamental in order to go for deep change. Is not invited if it's not desired, and if it's not nice, and if it's not pleasant. And the first one of them, it's the big one in terms of experience, the awareness, centrality, reinforcement, like really reinforcement your presence. That is the first one. If you really reinforce your presence with free very simple practices. The first one, then I've repeated it, it's taking over your breath. Look at your breath. That is the first one, because when you are looking at your breath, you are connected with pneuma, which is spirit in Greek, and then you are feeling the flow of your in and out relationship within yourself and the external and the internal universes. They tend to melt and they tend to bond, and you tend to feel more connected. That is the first one. The second one is connecting deeply with your vital energy in the body. Especially important if you have a very strong intellectual engine, so to speak, if you are very bright and if you have accelerated thought processes. It's very important connecting with bodily energy. If you can't do it right away, try make the bridge with the connecting with the breathing, and then you go to the feeling of the energy in the body. And then the third one is connecting with an object without looking, without making concepts about the object. I'm sorry. Connecting with the object without labeling it. Connecting with the internal space, awareness, consciousness of that thing, because every existing thing has a certain type of life and awareness. So those are the three main bridges, paths that I recommend to centering, because they are very simple and they allow us to grasp and to master many other types of centering traditions that we may have, or other practices like yoga, like vipassana meditation, and many other forms of connecting. Hi Julieta, thank you one more time for stopping by. I'm seeing your comment now. I think it is also worth mentioning and working on not allowing our brain to fill in the gaps of the unknown, since we are going through a new era of changes and with unprecedented behavior conditions. For sure. Yes, if you think that your thought processes are not getting creative enough, in order for them to generate solutions that you can implement and that you feel they are right for you, for sure, the way is to keep the space open completely on the spot on these centering practices that I bring for real, solid in terms of effective solutions arise. So I'm totally agreeing with this comment. Yes, for sure. But the thing is, we also can create with our own minds. Although that's not the source. The source of creating new possibilities, it's out beyond mind, but we can and we must, because it's one of the major conditions of human awareness, consider mind, but in that awareness dimension that we are talking here, for sure. New eras call for new combinations of existing elements, combinations that must be really, truly fit, adherent with reality in order for them to be effective. If not, they are just attempts in the very best case scenario, but they are not really effective solutions. So that's the thing. The second pillar that I was going to say about dealing with deep changes in the context of uncertainty, and it's the pillar that allows us, in my perspective, to make a dance between the intangible realms of centering and the more tangible dimensions of life, is the realm of, is the pillar of surrendering. Surrendering to life. Yes, and that is related with your comment, Julieta. You take one step ahead. Surrendering to life, surrendering to what is, surrendering to life and surrendering to what is completely, can be completely life-changing, especially if there is no other way. If there is no other way, it's the only thing that is left. It's simply keep a sharp awareness onto what is and letting it be, and being ready like a martial artist to make the very best way possible of the moment, embracing the moment, participating in the moment and in life, moment after moment after moment. And even the very best way of speaking about it is like, it's like a half-truth. It's a lie, because there are no separations between moments. It's our own perception as humans, because we have this mind that needs to cut things into pieces and to see or think in terms of a time scale, which has years and then months and then weeks and days and hours and minutes and seconds and milliseconds. If you are in sports, for 1 millisecond you lose or you get or won. It's amazing, and at the same time it's an illusion. It's not real. There is no cookie cutter of time. And if we go even further, there is no time as such. There is movement, there is space, and there is energy. All those three combined create our own experience of time. In this perception frame that we call being human, how do a bee perceive time? I don't know. How do a dolphin perceive time? Or if you have spiritual inclinations and you accept that is possible, which is my case, how do an angel perceive time? What about an archangel? And if you consider that all life has some sort of awareness, does the planet Earth perceive time? And if so, how can it? Or is it just a human concept? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I feel that the way we talk about time, it's just us humans or eventually other species that has this type of sense perception of regularities, nature regularities, cosmic regularities, seeing planets, stars, their movement, and then detecting the patterns and using those patterns in order to feel order, internal order, in order to deal with the monster of chaos that is a big monster for us humans to deal with. So, going for deep change is really a matter of, first and foremost, putting our very best in our four dimensions onto the place: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and other types of differentiations. If you prefer those, use those. There are many types of those differentiations. But putting your very best, consider your very best in a way that you can change things for the better. Second, having a solid grasp of reality. Third, accepting reality as it is, making the very best you can do for it to change. And that is, I believe, in the very best way that I can put it right now. That's a secret for dealing with deep changes, because deep changes are beyond mere transformation. Transformation is going beyond form. Transcend form, formation. Deep change is more like transmutation, going beyond essence. That essence expression in the tangible term of essence. Because if you consider the intangible dimension of essence, we are talking in the spark of divinity, so to say, or in the ethereal realm of life, if you prefer the scientific language, like ether, like the universal quantum soup in which all there is and all there will be will take existence in. That's the quantum physics language. I prefer, it's I'm not a quantum physicist, so I prefer the human development language. But as many of us know, the terms are being used several times, intertwined, but they are mostly the same thing, or they can be intertwined in some supports, some books, or other sources of information that you may find useful for dealing with your own situation, if you think. In the end, my dear friends, if you are living, and I'm going to finish with that type of deep change for you to check and go further if you like. If we are considering the very human deep change dimension, we are prone to find that uncertainty it's the meal of the day, yes, and that going up and going down several times in several different ways and shapes, forms, participants, scenes, acts, movies, narratives onto our own life path, it's a given. And of course, the sun and the stars can shine very brightly and make us feel a lot of joy on those. But the dark night of the soul, as you may have heard about it, and that is a book with this very name, written by St. John of Cross and Thomas More. The Dark Night of the Soul, for more theories and more ideas and more understandings that you may have when you are living it, it is quite a ride. So I wish you in all your deep changes that you must go through the very, very best of them all, and that you can bring yourself forth even and ever better, greater, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of us all. And please, please, you must keep your eyes opening wider, ever more into our life, because this world we are living calls for that, really calls for that, in ways that we haven't been called before. We are on the verge of something very, very important for all of us. And light meets shadows in every single walk. And if we are not seeing the shadows, like they said, we may be onto the shadow. So please choose the light. Please ask for help if you need it. If you need my help, you already know what to do, I believe so. If not, please send me a message on this platform, or send me an email to julio@juliobarroco.com. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and attention. Looking forward to talk with you tomorrow. And tomorrow I will talk about moving awareness. Moving awareness. What does moving awareness has to do with our lives right now? What does moving awareness has to do with your life right now? How can it help you in this COVID-19 context and in all contexts around making the very best of you? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Take care. Have a nice evening. See you.